Thank you. Yes, so what you've been told so far is really, really useful. And I thought the video at the beginning of this was very incisive. I would love to have had that kind of training 25 years ago. At this stage, I'm either the founder, CEO, advisor, or mentor for about 11 different startups. And you know, I should have known by now. It's a tremendously tough business to get into, activity to get into. And here is a dump of what I consider product development, because I consider product development all the way from the original idea. I like to say that I work on a scratched idea on a coaster, all the way through to companies that are about to exit. And I've worked within 3 Fortune 500 companies, 2 of which actually acquired my company. So I feel like I've got a really good sense of the entire life cycle. And so when I run into a new entrepreneur, I always ask the first question is, what are you trying to achieve with your life? And then back out to, okay, now what is the market need that is itching you? And you know, to reinforce what has been said before, I think this all starts with a market need. It doesn't start with a product. You don't want to build a product that's looking for a market. You literally want to say, something is bugging me. Who was it on the one application, which was, you know, trying to get a haircut in a foreign city, a foreign town? There's a problem you identify. And then you start to think about how to research that issue and find out what is the nature of the problem. So that's about nailing the market need. I'm going to go into this and break these up a little later, but just basically giving you the high level of what happens in my brain when a new business company is brought to me, or a new idea. Nail the market need, and that means really nail it. And that means you need to be extremely clear. I think the others talked about it as a niche, and the value proposition. So it's all very cool to help the world, but you've got to help yourself too. It's got to be self-sustaining. Then scope and develop the product appeal and pricing, right? So value proposition is one thing, but then the appeal and pricing. And I think you have to realize in today's markets, I'm recently became a specialist in what's called exponential organization methodologies. And in that, you have to assume that your pricing is going to be pressed to 0 over time. So bear that in mind. So what you might be is shifting values over time. But yeah, assume there's going to be margin pressure. You do anything well, you're going to have people hot on your tail very fast, and potentially large corporations building the same thing in competition to you. So if you create a market, really it's open for grabs by everyone. Then time travel, put yourself into the future. Try to understand what the market context will be like in the future. Pursue a human-centric design discipline. So I think we've all kind of laid that out. A very careful process of defining every aspect of the human centricity of your product. How does it hit the marketplace? How does it work? How does it feel? And how does it work in technically? And then to source the best developers and components. And to me, this is really far down. I'm talking about a person here who's a visionary, someone who has a product focus. In my particular case, I'm focusing on that because generally when I find developers, they've already got a product idea in mind, and they usually are not that. I mean, most developers sit behind a computer and they're very introverted. So I tend to find that they are not particularly good at identifying a market problem. Although, you know, there's a totally different approach, and that is sometimes they will toy with an algorithm, and that algorithm will become a huge company. Just because a bunch of their friends start using it, Bitcoin, for example, you know. So it can come from a developer, but I think we're talking from this perspective, from Founders Institute, people coming in with market ideas. So yeah, so then you source the best developers you can possibly get, because if you don't get experienced and focused developers, you are going to set yourself back by years. They can make a serious error in the architecture that can block your ability to respond to competition, etc. And use components. I think that they're absolutely right. Almost everything that can be thought of or built already exists, and it's out there. So I always say have the lightest possible technology footprint, because technologies come and go. But your mission and your transformative purpose should be human-based, and you know, because we started with the market, and therefore should sustain into the future even while technologies change. Then, of course, there's specify and roadmap the product and pricing. And a roadmap can be fun. That is something that creative people are always extending their roadmap. But then on the counterpoint is that focus manager, the necessity for making sure that you know what you're building over the next 3 months and do not stray from it, because you can end up with a tangled mess of exciting stuff that will never be able to be supported or get out into the marketplace. Then, of course, the natural agile project engineering, and then conduct, as almost everyone has said, user feedback iterations, and that is so that you can evolve. Things are moving very fast these days. So I broke it up into these 3 areas: designing your product, building your product, and marketing your product. So designing your product, getting into it a little more deeply. We kind of went over this, but what I generally find is that as others have indicated, you can actually have identified a market need, and the market changes. So you've got to bear that in mind. It might be that you want to establish a collision course where the trend of the market, where the market is trending towards. People are starting to adopt the mobile phone. So all of us are, many of us are focusing on how do we get onto the mobile phone. But what happens next? You know, what other kinds of interactions are happening? The IoT space, the AI space. Try to think about, you know, what is coming in the future where people's behavior patterns will shift, and you want to be one of the first there and be building for it. So, you know, I can't give you more reinforcement than to say execute the human-centric design methodologies. I was hijacked recently by someone who insisted on it, and I was actually blown away by how many problems we took out of our future by having a really, really good human-centric design. And then I also recommend people look into exponential organization methodologies. It's in a sense, almost a philosophy, a paradigm extracted from an analysis over the last 20 years of small tech companies that became unicorns, and what do they share in common? And they really leverage upon those to have exponential design. Exponential design generally means that you can scale in a frictionless manner very rapidly with very, very few overhangs or burdens. That's sort of the build a skateboard notion we heard earlier. So then building your product, our license and outsource as many components as possible. Almost everything you can consider has already been built, without a doubt. In fact, sadly to say, any idea you have is probably already out there 100 times. And then so this is why you're in the Founders Institute, because it comes down to execution, immaculate execution upon an idea. You do not have to be the first out. You do not have to be the best forever. In fact, depending on what you want to achieve in your life, you may want to be the company that the leader wants to buy. You could potentially make more money than their founders ever make because you own a specific part of the market that they require to become a multi-billion-dollar company, and they have to pay you $1 billion for it. So that's all about watching the market and seeing how it's shifting and where your niche might become super valuable and sustainable over time. So long as you're one of the top 3 in your marketplace, you're in good shape. Marketing your product, yes. So obviously, this is all about making sure that the dogs eat the dog food. Traction on your product is the scary part. You're going to invest a lot, and then you're going to put it out to market, and there is a strong likelihood that people are not going to use your product the way you thought. And that's where you have to be creative and pivot so that you can get, you can fulfill a market that's moving and is fickle. I said this at the bottom here, don't get fixated and stale in your proposition and mission. Pivot and evolve. You're in the game, it's your life, it's your career.
2-minute warning.
Yeah, I think did I skip building the product? No, I think I'm almost at the end. So I'll just indicate that the experience I've had is pretty much as a street fighter. I was never trained at all in any form of business, and I was thrown into a place where I came up with a market idea. And just so you know what it was back in the day when the first forms of internet, not even the web, but the internet were in place. And I was working, compressing music onto a CD, and decided that if we compress the music further, we can distribute it through public networks. And I created this vision, and it attracted a bunch of people around me, and I had to filter through them, created a great team, and then started going to market with it, and found that the market immediately grabbed it and took it away. the market pulled the product away from me and I had to keep up with it. But the problem is these things extinguish very quickly. So, you know, people would pull it up and give it away for free. It was MP3. MP3 market killed my business because they gave the product away for free and I was hoping to sell it for 99 cents. And just so you know, the story is not so sad because in the end I pivoted into ringtones and I was ahead of the market and I managed to sell my company for $42 million at the end of the dot-com blowout. And that was simply by being ready to pivot the notion of a full track in high quality CD made into monophonic ringtones and sold, you know, a fraction of a ringtone in mono, selling for 99 cents or up to $3 a piece. So stay light on your feet, and it's chaos, and you're going to be tested under fire. But all these things you're learning are great tools for you to be able to go forward.